Erling Haaland. He missed a penalty, but what he couldn't do from the penalty spot, he managed in open play on a counter-attack. Manchester City hurting Bayern Munich, their legends and their current players and their fans in Munich as they get a goal. They didn't need to win this one. They draw eventually 1-1 in the second leg, but with an aggregate score of 4-1, Manchester City make it through to the third successive semi-final in the Champions League and are looking very, very good. And Mark and David are still here with me. Mark, overall, over the two legs, I'm pretty sure you'll say City deserved to go through, but what did you make of their performance in this second leg?
They managed the game, didn't they? They managed it well. They didn't have to get out of second gear, if you like. You know, if it was the other way around, you'd have seen a more attacking type of play from Manchester City. But they just, you know, they rode the luck a little bit at certain times. Obviously, with the Sané miss early on in the game. But having said all of that, they would have upped it, and I would have thought they'd have got a couple more goals in this game. But yeah, over the course of the 180 minutes, the two games, they've been the better team by far.
Bayern Munich, as the players, showed their appreciation for the fans who turned up and showed their support. But now it's 4 games in a row where they haven't had a striker or a midfielder turn up in open play and score a goal. Kimmich, of course, getting the goal from the penalty spot, but scoring is a big, big issue for them, David.
Absolutely. I mean, I go back to the first leg and the big save from Ederson. That was an opportunity which it took a top goalkeeper to thwart them from scoring. But the rest of that, I mean, the most shots, Man City, like Mark said, managed the game very well. There was no serious threat from Manchester City during that game, albeit they did miss that penalty. But Bayern Munich huffed and puffed, and I tell you what, if you watch Bayern Munich versus Chelsea, that could be the longest frustrating game ever, because two teams in the Champions League quarterfinals who get loads of possession, loads of shots, and just not enough goals. Not good enough.
I think that's the one time we'll say thank God for penalties, the way you're making it sound in terms of both those teams not being able to get the goals. For now, we're joined by Ian Cheeseman from Munich. He was pretty confident before the match started. Looks pretty satisfied now as well. Ian, my first question to you is for a match that, for a tie rather, that seemed to have been done and dusted in the first leg. It got pretty emotional between both those sides, didn't it?
Yeah, I suppose towards the end there was a little bit of nerves around, but I never really thought that City were in any trouble. Bayern definitely created a lot of chances, but the longer it went, I just felt that they were never going to score a goal in open play. Obviously, they got a goal from the penalty, but despite the number of opportunities they had, they've got some great players in this Bayern Munich team. They just couldn't find the back of the net, and I think a lot of that was down to last gasp defending. I mean, Ruben Diaz at the back for Manchester City is the captain, all but name. Ilkay Gundogan was wearing the armband, but to me it was Ruben Diaz who was going around high-fiving all of his teammates all the time, rolling his shorts up. You can see him rolling his shorts up, wanting to lead this team over the line. Even when there was a penalty, he went over to Ederson and, come on, you've got to keep a clean sheet. And I think that's what the difference is between this City team and maybe the team from a year ago. The real test now is obviously going to come against Real Madrid, because last season they went out to Real Madrid, so they've now got to turn that around. They've got the second leg at home. I think that could be a big advantage to them. But tonight, I thought they were the better side, particularly in the second half, although there's no doubt that Bayern had chances in the game and probably should have scored. But it was a big amount to pull back, wasn't it? A 3-goal advantage. So I didn't think they were ever going to do it, and they didn't.
Before I get into the goals and everything that happened, David, I see a little perplexed expression on your face. Do you want to add to that before we move ahead?
Well, I thought, watching the game, I thought Bayern were the better team. They as you said, created most of the chances. The fact that Man City only had 2 shots on target, one of them was a goal, suggests that, again, there was a missed penalty. We have to make that clear. But I just think it was more about Man City managing a game, knowing that the 3-goal lead they had was never going to be overtaken. But yeah, I mean, for Ian to be as calm as he was before the game, I don't know where the nerve bits came in either. No one was nervous about City in that game.
All right. Now, Ian, I come to you for this because you had the best view amongst all of us. That goal scored by Erling Haaland, how fast was it when it happened? Because the action seemed to be going on in the Manchester City box, and in no time there was a goal.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those players who, when he gets that type of a chance, and they all look for him, particularly Kevin De Bruyne, that you just would put your house on the fact that he's going to score the goal. Once he sets off on a run like this, just look at the way he opens up his legs, the strength. He makes a little gap for himself, one way then the other, and then there's no doubt that he's going to finish. I mean, I've seen him run quicker than that. That wasn't the quickest I've seen him run, but he's got such strength and such power, but then the calmness to finish as well. The player's got everything. This is why he's the leading goal scorer at the moment in the English Premier League. He's got more goals now than any Englishman in any season, you know, with all the goals he's scored. He's just a phenomenon. If you stand next to him, he's a man mountain. He's got the calmness, the strength, the passion. He's a leader as well. When he comes to the back, he's there trying to head the ball away. He's got a little bit of everything. He's a special player, and I'm just glad from my perspective that he's at Manchester City, because I'd hate to see him coming at Manchester City and terrorising them. And now it's going to be Real Madrid that are going to have to stop him.
Now, before we move on to the equaliser, Mark, we mentioned John Stones. You know, at halftime, we spoke about him before when our pre-show was going on as well. When the ball is cleared from the Manchester City box, it looks like it's just, you know, anywhere will do. But then when you see it land on Haaland's head, you think, or close to Haaland's head, you think there's maybe a method to the madness there?
No, he's seen him. It was a cultured ball, wasn't it? He fed it in there, and Haaland obviously got above the defender and did really, really well. And then the rest is history. The ball's being played through to him. And unfortunately, it's Upamecano again, who's had a slip. Here you see it here, look, goes across. He has a little look there, see? And it's a nice little dink up. And Haaland manages to at least get it back into De Bruyne. Great ball by De Bruyne. And, I mean, I think Upamecano won't sleep if anyone mentions Manchester City to him, because over the two legs he's had a shocking time. But that's a great finish. And especially after missing the penalty, that just shows you the class of the man.
Yep. After he sees Upamecano go down as well, that touch to take it away from him. And there was obviously a celebration to match it as well. David, you enjoyed that?
I mean, it's a special goal, actually, RP. I mean, for all the things that Mark said there, I mean, Stones' pass, ironically, watching the header that he went up for from Stones' pass, that's typical Haaland. He doesn't actually win that many headers, and if he was given a free header, he'd probably flicked it on to safety for Bayern Munich. But the KDB pass was superb. The little flick, as Mark said, of Upamecano, definitely will not want to keep a video of this game or the first leg. And then the finish itself again was just, well, that part you expect him to hit the back of the net, and man, this guy is something special. But everyone keeps saying that, so what's new?
There must be something to it if everyone's talking about him. But let's move on to the equaliser there. Ian, the Bayern fans did seem like they were in full support. They were still cheering even though they knew they were out. What was the experience like when eventually that penalty was given? And what did you make of the penalty there in the stadium? We can hopefully get Ian back.
Sorry about
Ian,
that.
can you hear us?
I think the fans knew that the goal was a consolation goal. They didn't celebrate in quite the way that they would have done. But like I said before, they just seemed to run out of ideas almost when they were being frustrated by City in open play. But when they got this handball, which obviously tried to draw his arm away from, but it is handball, so it is a penalty. It was calmly taken, and they got a goal. It's something, I mean, I'm surrounded by, or was surrounded by, thousands of Bayern fans here, and they celebrated as if they'd won the cup. But in a sense, they knew it wasn't a goal that was going to make any difference in the end. But there was a lot of anger. I just felt there was a big banner at one end of the ground at one stage that was unfurled, and we know that the Bayern fans have been very angry from their perspective anyway, about what they see as financial doping for City. Der Spiegel is a German newspaper that's been trying to supposedly expose City, which City, of course, have wafted away, and they've got nothing to hide. And I suspect the same things will happen with the Premier League accusations that have been made. But there's certainly been a lot of animosity between Bayern Munich, the officials of Bayern Munich, and their supporters against City. So now they take on Real Madrid, and we know that there's a bit of history of the Real Madrid owner not particularly liking City anyway. So it all adds to the ante in these games. Don't we love it?
It totally does. Now, that could open an entire timeline of a debate. But before we move on, David, during the commentary and the awarding of that penalty, they used the word nonsense decision there, a couple of words there. What did you make of that penalty being awarded for handball?
Well, both penalties. I mean, the one that was disallowed, of course, was... But the thing is, these are the rules, and the rules have to be applied to, so you can't criticise them for giving them. But it's the nature in which the rules have to be interpreted. I mean, Upamecano for the first one, and then Akanji. I mean, what's he doing? What's unnatural about what he's doing?
Isn't it deflected off his foot?
Oh, I didn't see that bit. Okay. Yeah, maybe. I'll tell you what, maybe VAR haven't seen that. I mean, this is the thing. The interpretation from what I saw was correct decision. Incidentally, just so while Ian's talking about them celebrating, I just messaged the producer of the show before the penalty was given, and said that Bayern Munich, last time they failed to score at home in the Champions League was 2018. The last time they failed to score and lost, I think, was 2014. And then within 2 minutes, they awarded the penalty and scored. So it was that's why they were cheering, Ian, not because they just equalised.
Okay, fair enough. All the statistics did go out of the door in 2 minutes, like you said, David. But what matters is Manchester City got the job done. Now, Thomas Tuchel has come into this Bayern Munich side and has been tasked with a mammoth task in the Champions League, at least. They are leading marginally in the Bundesliga. Mark, you've mentioned there are fractions you probably think going on in Bayern Munich, and it seems like he's feeling the pressure.
Well, the results haven't gone well, have they, for him? He's lost as a 3 and 1-2, sorry, drawn 1 and lost 3. So yeah, he's not having the best of times, but he was particularly angry today, wasn't he, from the start of the game right the way through. Whether he's getting pressure from upstairs, I don't know. Whether there are fractions in and amongst the players that he can't get to grips with, I don't know. But there's just something not quite right. I mean, David will tell you, he's been at a lot of clubs where, when it's going well, none of these problems happen. But when things aren't going great, then all of these little problems end up getting in the press, and it doesn't look good on the club. I personally felt that Nagelsmann were hard done by. But obviously, Tuchel's come in, they've made the change, and it just hasn't happened for them, has it? And now all of a sudden they're out of the Champions League, and they've got a mighty fight on their hands, haven't they, in the Bundesliga as well?
Yep, they definitely do now. Thomas Tuchel, of course, feeling that pressure, but these gentlemen have mentioned that Manchester City managed the game pretty well tonight, and the man who was possibly single-handedly responsible for that is talking to us right now, Pep Guardiola.
Pep, congratulations into the Final Four again. Are you pleased to be consistently at that high level?
Yeah, of course. 3 years in a row, semi-final Champions League, and against this an incredible team. We struggled a lot in the first half. Upamecano break all the lines, and then our left side we struggled a lot with Coman and everyone. And we were fortunate before the penalty that we missed. They had 1 or 2 chances, and everything could happen. But this competition like this, but we defend really well in the box, and after our momentum came in the second half was much better.
That's the strength of the side, isn't it? You can adjust, you can stop those channels, you can make amendments.
Second half went better. Jack helped us to defend these pockets, and yeah, they're good, semi-final again.
Erling Haaland scored the goal, missed the penalty, so a good evening in the end.
Yeah, of course, obviously he's there, a good assist, and the finishing from Erling was really, really good. And he's so young, so at the end everyone here feel the pressure, so the result was amazing in Manchester. But we didn't have anything to win today, anything to lose, and we are a team like every year is better and better, but the experience that we have in this competition, the people feel it a lot, the players feel a lot, they want to do it really, really well, and the pressure is there. And the pitch was so difficult to play,
slipping,
a lot, and even for them as well. And we were aggressive, but the second half was much better since the minute one.
The defenders want a clean sheet. That was a strange goal, that VAR decision.
Yeah, because I think nobody complained, nobody say anything.
Weird.
So honestly, hopefully one day they can change a little bit everything.
It's a fantastic night. You can celebrate. You've got some big games coming up as well.
Yeah, now FA Cup. Every time we play FA Cup after this competition, we are exhausted. The team is exhausted, so I don't know how we are going to recover to play against Sheffield, because even if we play on Saturday, we cannot play on Sunday because, of course, United have Europa League and so demanding. So I don't know how far we'll arrive, because now is a tough morning for the game on Saturday.
Enjoy tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yep, that's a man who's made it, or his team have made it to the semi-final of the Champions League for the third successive season. He's definitely happy, but he does feel a little pressure maybe about the fixtures that are coming up. He mentioned the FA Cup. You can watch that on the Sony Sports Network. Of course, Ian Cheeseman will be joining us for that one. Now, just as David James was arming himself with all those stats until Bayern Munich had scored, there was that stat that we were arming ourselves with, which was his 100th win in the Champions League, Ian. And it got taken away from him. He's gone back to 99 right now with that equalizer from Kimmich. But you see that happening against Real Madrid?
I think certainly there's a good chance they'll win one of the legs. The second leg, they're at home. I don't see any reason why, based on what we're seeing at the moment, they can't do that. The game over there in the Santiago Bernabeu will be very difficult. And that's not to say that City aren't capable of winning it. But you can feel the pressure. I watch Pep Guardiola's press conferences every week, and you can sense when he was talking then that he knows that these players are at the limit. I mean, Nathan Ake came off with what to me looked like a hamstring injury. I even saw İlkay Gundogan at one point touching his groin area, and I thought, no, please don't let that be a groin injury as well, because those are two types of injuries that can see a player out for 3 or 4 weeks. And in that 3 or 4 week period, they've got the FA Cup semi-final of the Arsenal game. They've got the first leg at Real Madrid. But in answer to your question, then I don't see why that, not that it will matter to Pep. I don't think he's a statistics man particularly, but I can see that 100th victory coming in one of those 2 games against Real Madrid. And whilst I don't predict games, I think City have a better chance of beating Real Madrid this year than they did last year. That's not to say they'll do it, because Madrid have some very good players. And whilst David is absolutely right to pick me up and say that Bayern were the better side, and Pep acknowledged it himself, I suppose what I was referring to was that we saw a different type of City today, a defensive-minded City, where there was a lot of bravery in defence. And that is part of football. And again, I'm sure David would agree, if a goalkeeper plays well and makes lots of great saves in a game, then he's one of the 11 players. And that means that he was the difference between the other teams. So if Ruben Diaz, John Stones, Akanji, whoever it might be, Nathan Ake, make good stops, good blocks, and keep the other team out and frustrate them, that means you're playing well. But obviously, Bayern Munich did have a lot more of the ball. Coman particularly was threatening. So too was Sane, but they just couldn't find a way through. But Real Madrid, I watched the game last night, of course, and I thought Real Madrid were playing within themselves a little bit against Chelsea. They knew they'd already won that game, but maybe there's a psychological thing there. It could be to Real Madrid's advantage, or it could be that City is so fired up. And when you heard Ruben Diaz speaking recently at a press conference, I was sat just a few yards away from him, talking about the absolute belief and will to win that they've got. You can see that all over the field, particularly from him. So I think they'll go to Madrid for that first leg. really, really fired up and very, very determined to come back with a good result. Maybe that'll be a draw, and then Pep gets his 100th victory at the Etihad.
Okay, fair enough. Out of all the things that you said, I'll just, you have one misconception. David James doesn't really rate keepers very highly as part of the team. But David, jokes aside, my question to you is about the treble. Everyone is talking about it week in, week out, goes back. That's 11 wins on the trot for Manchester City now across competitions, scoring goals as well. The treble is definitely on, you feel?
Well, what he was talking about there is interesting. Again, you sort of led him up to talking. He was talking about the injuries to the potential injuries to to Aki, possibly Gundogan. In the Premier League, Arpit, Pep has only used 18 different starters, less than Arsenal, less than any other team in the Premier League. So essentially, he is putting a lot of pressure on a lot more players. Normally, Pep's rotation is much vaster than that. He hasn't used a full complement from in any type of Premier League game of the 25 that he could. So there is a lot of pressure and there's a lot of games. And if you look at what happened to Liverpool, which is probably the best analogy from last season, where they were in all competitions towards the end of the season, players were falling down, either fatigue, injury, or whatever. And puts a lot of pressure on the treble. It gets to the final, you're going to beat Manchester United if they manage to scrape through against Brighton. Champions League, you've got to get past Real Madrid. And like Ian said, it could be a draw, a win. Who knows? That you've got the best team in the world. And with the Premier League, any slip up now, even if they beat Arsenal, you still think that Arsenal have got possibly the better chance of winning because of the amount of games that City have. I don't think the treble's on, put it that way.
Good. You've taken off the pressure, David. Well done. Even Ian's shoulders went up a bit after you said all that. But you feel like the toughest task that Manchester City might have on the way to the title is in the semi-final.
Even if City got past Real Madrid, which is obviously why I'm here to talk about City, even if they get past Real Madrid, I wouldn't take anything for granted against whichever of the Milan clubs they would face then in the final. And by the way, I don't know if you've seen the rumours, the final may even move away from Istanbul. It's been in the English newspapers in the last couple of days that there are concerns about security in Istanbul. None of this is confirmed as yet, but it could be that the final is moved away from Istanbul. We don't know where to, although, again, Wembley has been mentioned. So there's lots of potential twists and turns to come in the latter stages of the Champions League.
Oh, well, this is the first I am hearing of it. I don't know whether Mark and David heard these rumours about maybe a shift in location for the final. AC Milan must have been looking forward to that for some redemption in Istanbul, because it's usually mentioned as heartache. They made it through past Napoli, of course, an aggregate scoreline of 2-1, which a lot of people didn't predict, including Ian, like he just admitted. No one really did. Everyone thought Napoli might get through that. Chelsea didn't score in 2 legs against Real Madrid, and Real Madrid did exactly that twice in each leg to make it through 4-0 on aggregate. Inter Milan gave us quite a nice, interesting match against Benfica. Benfica scoring 3 times away from home, but it wasn't enough because of the first leg where Inter Milan scored 2 in Portugal. And of course, Bayern managed to score 1 goal against Manchester City over 2 legs, but it was never going to be enough. And confirmation of the semi-finals that we have, Real Madrid versus Manchester City, like Ian has mentioned, that is in Spain, and AC Milan versus Inter Milan. Wonder where that is, at the San Siro, of course, in Italy. Lots to look forward to. There's a derby in the semi-final in the Champions League. Maybe, possibly a derby in the FA Cup final as well. Ian Cheeseman will be joining us for that one. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your company. Been a pleasure as always. Mark, David and Ian, hope you enjoyed the rest of your stay in Munich. Thank you all for joining us in our coverage